The 2024 season is back and we're already looking at the waiver wire. Here are the top options available in more than 50% of fantasy football leagues. I'm surprised how available Rico Dowdle is. Maybe people are scared off because of the Dalvin Cook signing, but I wouldn't be. Cook was one of the most inefficient running backs last year, and that's taken the Jets' offensive line into account. The coaching staff, the beat reporters, all indications are that Dowdle is the primary running back in that backfield, and he does have the upside to take it over. I do think Zeke will be involved in short yardage situations, so that could cap Dowdle's upside a bit. But this is a good offense, and if he's getting most of the work in that backfield, he has to be rostered. And he can even be started this week as an RB3 flex play. Jaleel McLaughlin is the next running back I am prioritizing on waivers if he's available. Samaje Perine was released, and now this is looking like a two-man backfield between Javonte Williams and McLaughlin. Perine played a big role in this offense last season behind Javonte, and McLaughlin had limited opportunities because of it. But on those limited opportunities, according to Fantasy Life's advanced stats, among the 57 running backs with 75 plus carries last year, he was 4th in missed tackles forced per attempt and 3rd in yards after contact per attempt. And he was pretty good in the receiving game too. Among the 66 running backs with at least 80 routes ran, he was 1st in targets per route run and 4th in yards per route run. Under Sean Payton last year, the Broncos had 153 targets go to the running back position. That was the most in the NFL. And this is just a theme we have been seeing with Sean Payton and his offense since forever. Check this tweet out from Scott Barrett. The RB2 on a Sean Payton offense has averaged 13.8 fantasy points per game across Payton's 18 seasons as head coach. Don't let McLaughlin sit on your waiver wire, or just buy him low now while you can. Making a shift to wide receiver now, Josh Downs is someone I'm looking to stash. He has a high ankle sprain, but he should be back relatively soon, and according to reports, he was Anthony Richardson's favorite target in camp, like over Michael Pittman. I'm not saying that Downs will out-target Pittman this year, but the target share can be a lot closer than we think. I would grab him, I would stash him, because he does have fantasy wide receiver 2 upside. Mike Williams is next up. He's on that Breece Hall plan, meaning the Jets will ramp him up over the first few weeks of the season before he gets a full-time role. He's a stash right now until we get the green light. He will play in week 1 apparently. He has Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. There's a lot of volatility here potentially, but there's a world where Williams gives you 8 to 10 touchdowns this year. There's no target competition behind Garrett Wilson right now, and he could be a steal being able to get him off the wire. Dontayvion Wicks is next up. He's such a high upside player. The question is whether they're going to give him the playing time required to be a dependable fantasy asset. It seems like the primary rotation right now is Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs as the perimeter wide receivers with Jaden Reed in the slot, and then Wicks rotating in for any of them. That's not what you want. However, there is a world where he does end up playing more as the season progresses, and if any 3 of these wide receivers get hurt and Wicks is put in a full-time role, he can absolutely explode. You saw the long touchdown this preseason. The upside's there. Remember, as a rookie, he was only behind Puka, Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, and Jaden Reed in yards per route run. He was ahead of Zay Flowers, ahead of Jordan Addison. He was 4th in first downs per route run among rookie wide receivers. He was 4th in PFF grade. There's a lot to like here, and I'm stashing him for as long as possible. J.K. Dobbins, he's available on a lot of waiver wires. It's hard to tell how this backfield is going to play out, but my expectation is that Gus Edwards will be the 1A and Dobbins will be the 1B to start the year. Dobbins is the most talented, obviously, but he's coming off the Achilles injury, which can be absolutely devastating for running backs and their careers. Can Dobbins defy the odds in his first year back? It's hard to bet on that, but he's worth rostering to find out because Edwards isn't crazy competition, right? I do have Kamani Vidal down my waiver wire rankings around 17 or so, because if Dobbins is not that guy anymore, Vidal can look good and end up moving his way up the depth chart, past Dobbins and past Gus Edwards, who is 29 years old. He has never carried the ball more than 200 times in a season in his career. So if Dobbins isn't available on your waiver wire, I look for Vidal on waivers when you're talking about the Chargers backfield. Now, I have 2 Patriots wide receivers next up, and I know this offense is terrible, so you might not want a piece of it, but they're going to have to throw the ball. And while there might not be so many touchdowns to go around for this offense, receptions, yards, they're going to be there. And choosing a Patriots wide receiver on waivers, it depends on what you need. If you need a PPR flex play like this week with a relatively safe floor, I think Demario Douglas should be your pickup. He's starting in the slot. He was very efficient last year as a rookie, and he can give you a solid 5 catches for 64 yards in week 1. If you want a higher upside, longer term play, I think Jalen Polk will be the guy I'd pick up. It looks like he'll be their starting flanker as soon as week 1, and that's exactly the role you want him to play. Off the line, in motion, getting targets down the field. He could end up being the primary read on most plays very soon. If I'm just looking for the long-term play, I'm going to go Polk. Now, if you need some other wide receivers to play this week, Adonai Mitchell, assuming Josh Downs isn't going to play, he's been taking over for Downs in the slot in the preseason, and we've seen Anthony Richardson connect with Mitchell several times this preseason while Downs has been out. He'll be an upside flex play. Jacoby Myers, a little bit deeper down, but he's a good wide receiver. You can throw him in. He did his thing last year. Quarterback did change, obviously, so there isn't as much confidence there, but at least he is the clear wide receiver 2 on the Raiders, and he's a good player. Greg Dortch is someone I'm willing to start in deep leagues, maybe in my flex or so. Between him and Michael Wilson, I lean in his direction by a hair. He's always been productive when given opportunity when Rondale Moore was off the field. I'd also keep an eye on both Jermaine Burton and Andre Yoshivas in case Jamar Chase ends up sitting out week 1. Yoshivas is ahead of Burton on the depth chart, but if Chase is off the field, Burton will likely be close to a full-time receiver, and my bet is actually on him because I really like him as a player. I know he played against second or third stringers in the preseason, but he absolutely dominated. All right, let's go over some running back stashes, and this is the order that I have them in. Tyler Algier. He could have some standalone value, maybe, hopefully not, but we know he's a good running back, and he could do very well if Bijan Robinson were to ever go down. Hopefully not. Knocking on wood. Jordan Mason, with Elijah Mitchell now out for the season, we actually have a clear handcuff to Christian McCaffrey. The rookie, Isaac Guerrero, has spent the entire offseason hurt. Mason has huge upside if CMC were to ever get banged up. Jalen Wright, he's actually a handcuff to both Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. If either of those two were to go down, Wright would just slide into a 1B role, and we know that this role can be extremely productive and fantasy relevant. When you consider Wright's speed and athleticism, he can absolutely go crazy even in a complementary role. Ray Davis, because he's the goal line back to start for the Bills, maybe he complements James Cook more than we think. At the very least though, he's their RB2 and he'll be very fantasy relevant on a great offense if Cook were to go down, so I would stash him. Marshawn Lloyd, he's back in practice. It looks like he might go in week 1. Josh Jacobs was very inefficient last year, but either way, if Jacobs were to go down, Lloyd has crazy potential in the Packers offense. There's no one worth noting behind him, and he is very capable of handling a 3-down role. We could even see him handle a 1B role. If they were willing to give A.J. Dillon a 1B role last year, Lloyd is way more talented. I could totally see that happening this year in this offense with this coaching staff. Samaje Perine, we've seen Jerick McKinnon have some big games for the Chiefs 2 years ago. I think Perine is better now than McKinnon was last year, and while I don't think there'll be real standalone value for Perine, he's going to have his games, even though, there is a world where there is some standalone value for Perine. I do think that he now becomes one of the more valuable handcuffs because he would play a 3-down role if Isaiah Pacheco were to ever go down. And by the way, guys, I'm knocking on wood the entire time I'm talking about these handcuffs, okay? Don't worry. If you want more waiver wire pickups, visit our website at upperhandfantasy.com or our Instagram page at upperhandfantasy. I'm Faraz Siddiqui. See you guys in the next one.